Oh, bonjour, Jacques. Okay. This one may be a long one. Kind of complicated. It's been a while since I've posted anything. Just been a busy time for me. The spring and the summer, not really time for making videos much. Is it time for planting? It's time for work. I know y'all haven't seen me much on Facebook. I've honestly been kind of burned out on social media, and decided sort of put it away for a while. It was causing division, and well, I won't get into it, but had some falling outs with people I loved, and well, like I say, I'm not going to get into it, but got kind of sick of social media, and I've just sort of let it be for a while and focused on the farm, planting. Anyway, today I hopped into Facebook and happened upon a thread in Justin Neely's Potawatomi language group, and set me off, man. It set me off. One thing that's kind of stuck in my craw for a long time is postmodernism. Postmodernism, in my view, is very dangerous, especially for Potawatomi and Anishinaabe people. I think it's a bad thing, and I'll tell you why. Because it's a European ideology, political ideology, and regardless of the damaging effects that neo-Marxism and Marxism in general has had on the world, I think it's particularly damaging to indigenous people. Because it has a quality of assimilation. If you look at, for instance, the LGBTQ plus, why is it a plus? Because they keep adding more groups, and there's an assimilation kind of Borg, Star Trek Borg kind of mentality about it. It sucks entire ethnicities and other various marginalized groups into it, and it steals your voice. It steals your voice and forces its ideology onto entire groups of people. And this is, and what makes it any better than Christianity or any other kind of European ideology? And let's face it, you're gonna have to look at the roots of postmodernism. It's a French philosophy. It comes from French philosophers, Jacques Derrida, Michel Foucault, and ultimately harkens back to Karl Marx, the German, right? So postmodernism is dangerous, and it is not an indigenous Native American ideology, and it cannot by its very nature ever be. So while it may be critical of Western civilization, which I think is unfair to begin with, while it may be critical of it, it's not, just because it's the enemy of Western civilization doesn't make it our friend. And in many ways, we are part of Western civilization now. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm digressing a bit. I'm sorry about that. I'm trying to get all my thoughts in order here. So, let me go back to how I got triggered in this Facebook group, language group. All right, sorry about that. I kind of got sidetracked on some, interrupted. I'm gonna try and gather my thoughts here again and continue. So, as I was saying, I went into this Facebook group, language group, and there was a discussion going on, long thread, about well, it had to do with the word for firekeeper, which involves the word for man. And so there were a couple of people who made the assertion, and I know that both of these people who made this assertion are strong believers in postmodernism, whether or not they are even aware that they're believers in postmodernism. So their assertions were that this is patriarchy, that it needs to be deconstructed, this gender roles in ceremony. Naturally, you know, a lot of folks reject that notion. But people aren't educated enough on what postmodernism is, and they're not and the people who are being critical of it aren't educated enough in Anishinaabe traditions, and certainly not in ceremony. So the people making the assertion that that gender roles in Anishinaabe ceremonies are sexist, and the people who were defending those gender roles had some pretty harsh comments in between them. And I myself, you know, fall in the camp of defending the gender roles and the ceremony. So I may have reacted harshly myself. I think a lot of this conflict is based in ignorance of what postmodernism is, and what Anishinaabe culture is. So the thing is that there's no need for deconstructionism. First of all, European civilization attempted to deconstruct Anishinaabe civilization for hundreds of years. Those who are defending it today, they're not going to give up so easy. You know, been fighting to keep those gender roles for a long time, right? And we're not going to give it up just because you make the assertion that it's sexist. Well, it's not sexist. See, this whole idea of patriarchy depends upon this idea that one is dominant over the other. Well, if you go into a roundhouse for a traditional ceremony, you'll see that there's a balance. A balance. The women on one side, the men on the other. The men tend the fire, the women tend the water. There's equality. These roles are based in equality. It doesn't need to be deconstructed. In fact, any attempt at deconstructing them, especially in an effort to do so in the postmodernist ideology, well, guess what? You're engaging in white supremacy. Ha! You're engaging in white supremacy because, my dear postmodernist other kins, because you're defending a European ideology. Well, not just defending it. You're using a European ideology, postmodernism, cultural Marxism. You're using that as your reason to attack Anishinaabe culture, which has been the victim of white supremacy for a long time. You're basically using a European ideology to attack Anishinaabe culture. Now, if that isn't white supremacy, what is? So y'all need to rethink that shit, don't you? And guess what else? Anishinaabe culture is ethno-nationalism. Can you believe it? Oh, I said it. I said it. We are alt-right. Oh, I know, it's painful. Painful. Sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. Sometimes things are more complex than a simplistic postmodernist view can really comprehend. Are we bad for being ethno-nationalists? I mean, we are the Anishinaabe nation. Anishinaabe nation. Anishinaabe, an ethnicity. Nation. Nationalism. It's an ethno-nationalism. And y'all can't defend that. Y'all can't fight that because it's the reality. Right? So, what are you going to do? You're going to tear down your whole worldview. I know. Harsh. Harsh. I ain't saying this out of hatred. I'm no fan of postmodernism. But I ain't saying this out of hatred to my brothers and sisters. Even those that I feel have lost their way with this postmodernist horseshit. But sometimes you got to step back and take a deeper look at things. So, no, our gender roles are well defined, well placed, and in perfect balance. There's no sexism there. There's no sexism there at all. There's no domination of one gender over another. There's perfect harmony. That's a beautiful thing. And Anishinaabe culture needs to be defended and protected because it's precious. Precious. Now, one of these folks was claiming that they're trans, a trans person, and, you know, two-spirit, whatever, and saying, well, then it needs to be deconstructed because it doesn't have a place for me. Well, that is not true. Okay, what y'all need to do is look into a philosophy, an Anishinaabe philosophy called Wendigo Khan. Okay? Yes, it comes, part of the word Wendigo Khan comes from the word Wendigo, which was, you know, considered an evil creature. But that in itself doesn't mean anything. Okay, it's more complicated than that. Like I said, sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. The Wendigo Khan philosophy is a philosophy of what my friend refers to it as backwards medicine. Okay, and what that is really it's a philosophy that already exists within Anishinaabe culture to challenge traditions. All right, that's its purpose. The Wendigo Khan, Wendigo Canuck, challenge traditions. Okay. And this is a very complex idea, something that requires a lot more study and a lot more than I can get into here in a little 10-minute video, okay? But I'll try and break it down in a real simple form Okay, so the Wendigo Con in the old days, in the old traditions, the Wendigo Con did everything backwards. All right, and I think this is maybe where some of that whole two-spirit idea come from. It's from the Wendigo Con. So they do everything backwards, right? They'd walk backwards, talk backwards. Sometimes men would wear women's clothes. Sometimes women would wear men's clothes. They did everything backwards. Everything cattywampus, you know? And it was a cultural tradition, a clown medicine, basically. They would, wash with dirt and dry off with water. The Wendigo Con challenges traditions and preconceived notions. It's what the Wendigo Con does, right? And so this is the place for it. Like if you're trans or whatever, and you say, well, there's no place for me in the roundhouse. Well, there is. Okay. You're not sitting on the man's side or the woman's side, or you might sit on the man's side one time and the woman's side on the other. You might wear men's clothes some days and women's clothes another. This is the Wendigo Con way. So it already exists. You're not outcast by Anishinaabe culture, doesn't condemn you. You're just Wendigo Con. Alright? So chill out. You don't need to deconstruct Anishinaabe culture. It ain't necessary. There's already a place for you. Okay? It's already been made by your ancestors a long time ago. You just need to learn more. That's all. Ain't no need to try and destroy us. And believe me, sisters, you ain't gonna deconstruct a damn thing. We've already been far down that road. And if they couldn't deconstruct us in 400 years, it ain't gonna happen by a bunch of trans activists who are stuck on some postmodernist French philosophers' horse shit. So take a breath. Take a breath. And try and learn a little more. Look into the Wendigo Con. Understand it. Because that's the position you'd want to hold if you're a trans person. That's the path you're walking down. You don't deconstruct all of the rest of us. You take your place at the table. And your place is with the backwards medicine. That ain't a bad thing. It's necessary just like any other position in order to maintain a healthy culture. It exists for a reason. And it existed long before you, and long before Jacques Derrida, and long before Karl Marx. And as I said in the thread, Jacques Derrida, Michel Foucault, and Karl Marx are not Anishinaabe holy men. So what they believe doesn't matter to us. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say on that issue. I mean, I got a lot more to say on it, but I ain't going to say any more at this point. Probably going to piss a lot of people off with this one. But that's alright. I'm going to leave you with a view of my little sema patch I got right here. Huh? Sema. Ain't it a beautiful thing? I love you, brothers and sisters. Take care. Even those of you that are mad at me right now. And brother, you know who you are. Love you too. You call me whenever you're ready. Pamapi.